we're going to take a look at a phone that was released back in 2009. It's the Motorola Milestone or Motorola Droid. And the difference between this and other smartphones is the slide-out keyboard. So we are getting this on some smartphones, but it's quite rare. But yeah, this was one of the first Android phones out there that was half decent anyway. And it's a phone, my first Android phone, after a feature phone which just had the numeric pad for text messages. So this was pretty cool to be able to type emails or text messages onto a physical keyboard. And although the screen is pretty small by today's standards, and you can see here against the Galaxy S9, that it's pretty tiny. But then when you've got a physical keyboard, obviously there's not a soft keyboard on the screen taking up all that room, so that's not a bad thing. So taking a look around the rest of it, you've got this little cursor pad or D-pad down on the side there, so that's directions if you've got a cursor in a text editing app or that kind of thing, with an OK in the middle. Interestingly, well, sort of interestingly, there were 4 buttons built into the bezel. Obviously these days with Android you only really get the back button, the home button and the menu button. But back in the day you got a settings menu as well. And the fact that they put this back key on the left hand side has meant that on every version of Android since, I've had to configure the back button on the left, just because muscle memory. Let's have a look around the back. So it's got a 5 megapixel camera. Inside we've got 8 gig of RAM and 8 gig of storage, but 256 meg of RAM. So not a great deal compared to the 4 gig of memory that you get these days in a lot of phones. 3.7 inch display. You've got volume buttons on the side and a dedicated camera shutter button here, which if you pressed it then that would bring up the camera app. So that was useful, and you see that in some phones now, or at least a configurable button. Power button on the top with the headphone jack and micro USB charging. So let's turn that on. It'll take a little while to boot. Just put that next to the Galaxy S9 so you get an idea of size. Now this is running Android 2.21. I have rooted it back in the past, and what we'll see is how Android's really changed. It's a lot more slick. Interestingly, the menu, the settings menu that you get to when you swipe down, that's pretty much non-existent. And it's really only accessible via the settings button. So there we go, it's booted up. And let's do pattern unlock. Yeah. And it's quite basic. Things like Play Store don't work anymore. I was trying to get that going. Oh, it's still booting everything, so it's a little bit slow. Yep, so it says there's no connection, even though there is. And if we look in here, there's no settings like you used to. And you hit the settings button instead. Come on. And then you get some settings down here where you can go into the more familiar settings menu and about the phone. Yeah, it was Android 2.21. This is quite a slow processor. Now it's got a 600 megahertz Cortex A8 processor with a GPU, which is a PowerVR SGX 530. So not Snapdragon or anything like that, maybe those weren't even in existence. The browser still built in. I was going to try and load Chrome onto it, but as I can't get into the Play Store, that's not possible. And I was finding earlier that this really didn't work well. It's not popping up anything. Oh, they're going to behave. Right, so it managed to do something. So, I don't know why my other phone's taking pictures. Oh, security warning with certificates. And you are able to use the keyboard. Oops. That is quite nice. I do still quite like having that keyboard there and the cursor to move up and down. That's quite cool, isn't it? Dedicated search button. And if we flip this round, back on a lot of phones in the day, you have a removable cover where you can easily get to the battery, and if you have a couple of batteries you can just swap those out during the day. Don't need to bother with a battery bank, and these are quite small batteries, so there's not a lot to them to just bang a few of those in your bag. I kind of wish that phone manufacturers did that now and didn't put glass backs on the phones. I'd much rather be able to get into the things like this and replace the battery after a few years to kind of give it an extra lease of life. Obviously the SD card that you can add in, it goes in there together with the SIM card. There's the 5 megapixel camera, and I guess that's the water damage indicator. I don't know if X's mean it's been exposed to water or what, but and that's about it. I think that's really what I wanted to show you. I have fond memories of using this phone, so let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed using this or whether this is the first time you've seen it, and what phone you had first. So thanks for watching.